You're listening to the pre-match from me, Danny Mann, on Switch Radio. We have Pro Picks with a special guest today. 642 appearances, 185 goals, Midland clubs including Blues, Stoke, Derby and Walsall. He was part of the infamous Birmingham City team that got to the Promised Land when they housed Norwich. Mr. Tommy Mooney, absolute pleasure to meet you, sir.
And you.
Thank you
Good
very
to see
much.
you.
Okay, we've briefly explained the format before. The idea is Tommy was going to pick a five-a-side team, his best goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, striker, and then a wild card at the end, a bit of a character, someone in the dressing room, Mr. Entertainment, that kind of thing. Okay, so kicking off with goalkeeper, Tommy.
Goalkeeper, it's a really easy one. I mean, I've played with some good ones, but I played with Ben Foster at Stoke, so I'm ticking off the Midlands clubs already. He was only a young kid, but the best left foot for any player, let alone a goalkeeper, and I knew that he'd drop it on the badge from 80 yards. And I could chest it down and we could go and play. Great lad, even as a young kid, and then went on to have a fabulous career that he completely deserved, and played for Watford and Birmingham, two of my other old clubs as well. So, yeah, I know Ben really well. Very different now to how he was as a young, shy, spotty kid.
Mr. Social Media.
Now he's breaking the world, isn't he? And making far more money out of his YouTube than he did out of football.
And that stint at Wrexham at the end.
Yeah, you know, everybody goes to a particular club for a reason, and it worked for him. You know, he essentially got them promoted with a penalty save towards the end of the season. And obviously, he loves the publicity, doesn't he? So
he's not shy, is he?
Two Hollywood icons and Ben Foster, they go hand in hand, really,
don't they? Match made in heaven. Oh. Okay, moving on to defender. Best defender you've ever played with?
Really difficult. I mean, I played till I was 38, so I was a pro for 21 years.
Himself.
21 years, so I played with a lot, and I've played with a lot of bad players as well, don't get me wrong. Some of them used to drive me mad every Saturday. By 3:10 on a Saturday, I'd lost my rag with most defenders. I think I'd single out Scott Dan, that I played with at Walsall, which is another tick on the Midlands clubs. Again, as a young kid, I mean, I was 38 years old, Scotty was 20 maybe, something like that. Went on to have a fabulous career, played a lot of Premier League games.
Very underrated in my opinion.
Very much so. Really good footballer. He's one of them, if he was still playing now, which he could do, because I've had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, he'd be one of those centre-backs that could easily play in a holding midfield player, because he could control the ball and pass the ball.
Reads the game really well as
yeah,
well.
Exactly. And, you know, to play at the level that he did for the length of time that he did, I think it's admirable. To him and how he's lived his life and how professional he was. But, you know, I helped him out a little bit when he went to Coventry. He rang me up and said, Moons, I'm not sure that we're going to get this over the line. It was a big move for him, and, you know, I told him a few of the numbers he should ask for. And he got them. So one of the houses in one of the countries that he uses.
He's got Mr. Mooney to thank for.
Well, I probably made him about 20 quid more than he would have got. But definitely Scott Dan I'd have at centre-half in my five-a-side team.
I don't think many people would argue with that. Okay, moving on to midfield.
Midfield it's a toss-up between two, both internationals. I played with Rob Lee at Derby and at Wickham, but also at Derby, another tick for the Midlands clubs. I'd go Georgie Kincladsey.
Oh, wow. What
outstanding player at the time. And the reason he's in my team is because Liam Gallagher brought him to training one day and dropped him off and picked him up after training. So if somebody out of Oasis is bringing a football into training, he's got to get in my five-a-side team, hasn't he? So Georgie's definitely in there. Literally, technically, the best footballer I've seen.
Brilliant. Okay, moving on to striker. Big man up top or goal scorer, little man?
Well, he's a big man, but you wouldn't expect it from the way that he plays, and any blue noses would know. I never actually played with him in a league game, but we played a couple of games. Christophe Dugarry is literally the best footballer I've ever shared a training ground with.
What was it about him? Was it the aura, or
he had an aura?
Did he back it up as well on the training ground?
He had an aura about him. I mean, he'd won the World Cup and the Euros. Yeah. That certainly helps. I think I'd been a better player if I'd had that in my back pocket. But it was the fact that he knew, before he took his first touch, he knew what he was doing with his fourth and fifth ones. He just read the game 2 seconds, maybe, quicker than everybody else.
I guess there's levels when you see someone like that on the training pitch in the ground.
Yeah, and it's with Christophe as well. It'd be easy. His best mate's Zidane. So
some
we'd
phone book.
be sat having lunch every day, and Zizi would be on the phone to Christoph, and he'd put him on speaker, and the rest of the lads would be like, "Oh my God, Zidane is at the dinner table." But one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Would always
Humble.
we enjoyed the same Italian restaurant in Solihull, and we'd go for lunch. I'd take the kids, and he'd always send over drinks, milkshakes for the kids, and a glass of wine for me. Sometimes a bottle if we won.
Speaks more about the man, doesn't it?
Yeah, just absolute gentleman, and for the trophies that he'd won, and he owns half a Bordeaux with Zizi, so it's not like he wasn't sending me one of his bottles of wine. He was paying for one, but literally the best footballer that I certainly shared a dressing room with.
Not many can put a name like that down on this list, to be honest, so I don't blame you whatsoever. Okay, the interesting bit now, the wild card, the character, not necessarily the best footballer you played with, but someone, morale, someone the pre-season, trips away, those kind of things that galvanises the lads in a slightly different way, I guess.
I think that's a really difficult one, because which direction do you go in? Do you go for the Joker? Do you go for the Mona? Because there's plenty of them.
Oh,
I could
surely.
pick plenty of them.
Entirely your choice.
I would go with my roommate at Sheffield United was Dean Windass. Oh. Absolute lunatic. No matter how bad I was feeling, he was feeling worse. And no matter how good I was feeling, he was feeling better. So as much as he wouldn't get in my five-a-side team because I just couldn't afford the pre-match meal. It's as simple as that. He was definitely one of those characters where you think, I have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 minutes. And sometimes that keeps you on your toes. And when you're away from your family and friends for pre-season trips or mid-season breaks, as it was at Sheffield United, you probably need somebody that's either a morale booster because they cheer you up, or he's always worse off than you are. And sometimes that made me feel better more than the other side of it.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. Mr. Mooney, it's a pleasure.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much.